Old man here, and I'm about to patch this hole behind me, coming right up. For those of you that know me on social media, I've done a few of these videos where we patch a hole in the drywall, and we're just going to do it again. It's very easy to do, and anyone can really do it, and it's a pretty easy process. So, the hole that you see here is not the original hole. It was actually a smaller hole, maybe the size of a fist, and then the drywall around that hole was kind of damaged. So what I had to do is cut all of the bad drywall out, and you can see the dust I already have there from that. And just to give you an idea of what I did here is I took a drywall saw, that's one of these, and just punched a hole in it. And when you put these in, you put it on the edge and then you punch the end of it and it'll eventually go through. And then I just sawed all this out, right? Just like this, all the way to the end, and then came down. And then I made that hole. And then I just happened to have an extra piece of drywall laying around, and oddly enough, or ironically enough, it is the perfect size, and I don't have to cut anything off of this one. In fact, I may have to trim the flap that I'm going to create here in a minute. But in any event, this is the perfect size, and what we want to do here is we want this piece to be about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch larger than the hole itself. So if you look at it this way, you can see that the drywall fits perfectly on each end. And then if you look this way, it's just about a 1/2 inch on each side. So that's the perfect size that's going to be patched there. And the idea here is once this is cut out, we're going to put joint compound on the flaps that I'm going to create on this piece of drywall here, and then around the edges of the opening there, and then press this piece into that, and then it will seal up pretty nicely. So the next thing we have to do here is, now that we have that, is I need to measure this hole and get pretty close and then outline it on this piece here, and then we will cut this out. So I'm going to go ahead and measure this now, and then we're going to transfer those measurements to this piece of drywall. Stay tuned. You can see here I've measured out the dimensions. It's 8 3/8 by 5 3/4 of an inch, and we made that dimension along the back side of the drywall piece here. Now you don't want to do it on the front side. That's the side you're going to paint, because you're going to cut and score the outside of this area, and then I'm going to show you what we do after that. Because you want to leave the flaps on that I'm going to create for the front, because that's what you're going to paint over. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to score the edges, and then we're going to snap those off. And to score that, you just take a utility knife, and then I've got a straight edge over there, and we'll cut along the edges here, and then we'll break that off. I'll show you that here in a second. All right, so what I've done here is I've scored, as you can see here, with my utility blade and my makeshift straight edge, all of the lines here that you can see. Now all we're going to do here now is pop this off. So check this out. You can usually just pop them off with your hand. It looks like I'm not going to be able to do it here, but if we do it on the edge here, let me show you. You can kind of just there we go. And all 4 of these corners should pop off. There we go. And that's the beauty with drywall, is once you score it, you can simply snap to where everything comes about. Now, what you don't want to do is take the whole thing off. Typically, you would just cut this off now too, but except on the other side. And then you'd have your piece of drywall that you can put in. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to leave this outside edge of the flap. And then all you simply do here is You gently bend it like I'm doing here, and then you peel off very gently the drywall from the paper. Check it out. Now you have this flap here. That's the back side of, you have this, excuse me, you have this flap here. That's the back side of the drywall piece. And then we're just going to rinse and repeat here on all 4 sides. Get all of this off very gently. Now it's okay if it rips a little bit from the cardboard here, as you can see, but you just want to make sure that you have this front face back, because that's what you're going to be your finished edge. I'm going to do the same thing here. Awesome. So let's pick the camera back up. Now you can see we have a piece here that should fit the hole pretty closely. I may have to trim it up a little bit, but that's fine. And then that'll be your finished edge. So let's take it over here to the hole. And then kind of dry fit it into place here. All right, check it out. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to trim this up a little bit because that corner up there is a little smaller. But if we dry fit this into place, I'm actually gonna come around the corner here. And then we'll see what that looks like. So, yeah. So just about fits. A little off there. So we're gonna trim. I'm gonna trim off. I can do either one. I can trim the piece that I'm putting in, or I can trim the actual wall. I think I'm gonna trim the piece because I'm gonna leave the integrity of the wall as it is. And then we just need to trim it down. So I've got about 1/4 of an inch on top here, and then maybe 1/8 of an inch on the sides to trim down. And then we'll keep doing that. So I'm gonna take this back over to the bench, and all I'm gonna do is just take a utility blade and just keep trimming off here. And then we're gonna trim it down to what I need to fit in there, and then we'll show you that coming up. You can see I've managed to fit that piece in there after I trimmed it down a bit, and it fits in quite nicely. This is a dry fit right now. And all we need to do now is get that bucket of joint compound in that green bucket over there that you see. And we're gonna get some taping knives out, put the joint compound out around the edges, and then you'll see how this all comes together. So this went in really nice. You can see here how it comes apart. So what I'm gonna do now is back this freezer out so I have a little more room to work here. I've got to get the knife and stuff behind on the edges, and I need some room to spread the joint compound there effectively. So we're gonna move this out, get that bucket ready, and then show you how this is done. All right, I got my bucket of joint compound open right here. And all I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna coat the inside of the flaps here along the edge, also on the drywall, with joint compound. And then we're gonna put it into that hole after I coat the inside of the hole too, of where we're patching. So all we're gonna do here is, doesn't matter if you get it on the back side, but I'm just gonna kind of paste it on, as you see here. So it'll fall back into the bucket. And then we're just gonna paste it all out. Now what's gonna happen here is, once I put this back in the hole and then it cures overnight, it's gonna be like a glue, is what this is gonna act like. And it will make that part of the wall very solid again. So it isn't really that hard, but you just got to get enough on so it really goes in there. And then this excess on the back, we can just scrape back into the bucket. So it might be a little bit messy, but it all washes off. Get some more on here. It's gonna work out perfect. All right, it definitely got enough on here. And then we're just gonna scrape the rest of this off. Now I'm gonna adjust the camera so you can see what's going on. Actually, I'm just gonna put a bunch of this in on the hole, and then I'll show you the result of that because I'm working one-handed here. So I'm taking this, I'm gonna put this on the hole side. I'll just put some of that in there. I'll show you that in a second here. Doesn't matter if any of this falls into the hole, you're never gonna see it, right? Apologies for not showing you all this, but you'll get the gist here in a second. All right. Okay, so that's done. All right. So check this out. All right, so I've got the joint compound on all four sides here of the hole, plus on the drywall piece I'm going to put in here. So all we're going to do now is I'm going to do this one-handed again. We're going to flip this around, and then we're going to push this into place. So I'm going to move to the other side so I can work easier with the other hand. Bear with me here. All right. And actually, let's do this. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, so check it out. So now I'm just gonna push all of this into place. Got an extra knife here, and see if we can get this to work. And that's gonna squeeze in there. There we go. There's that side. You see all that's coming out, which is working out nice. We'll even get up top here. Now, it did push in a little bit over here, but that's okay because we can just fill all of this in with joint compound. And squeeze it all out the best we can. We even go back this way here. And that's pretty much all she wrote for that. So I'm going to clean up my hands here, and then I'm going to come back through and then actually not tape, but put more joint compound around the top here, and then we're going to let that set overnight, and then it'll be nice and hard in the morning, and we'll be able to sand it down. So stay tuned for that. All right, so I've got a couple more taping knives here, and I'm moving all my joint compound over the taping knife, and all I'm going to do now is just cover this whole thing up, try to smooth it out as best we can. And remember, this is just a garage, but we do want to make it look fairly nice compared to everything else here. So because this is finished on this wall here, but at least we get the hole plugged, and you'll see what I'm going to do here. So now I'm just going to go over it with a pretty liberal coat of joint compound. It's not the most clean looking run of joint compound, but it's going to get the job done. And first I'm just going to coat it so it's completely filling in everywhere I need to. Probably going to end up using a lot here, and we'll just spend a little bit of time tomorrow after all this dries sanding it down. I'm not taping the edges. Usually you would tape the edges, but I'm not doing it on this one. I'm just going over it very lightly. You can see there's going to be some pretty big gaps there, and that's quite all right. So now I'm just going to go back over this way, and you can see they're starting to cover it up pretty good. Now again, I'm using more joint compound than you would probably normally use. It's quite all right. And we're going to feather this out to each side so it starts to look like it's flat once you sand it down. If I kept all the joint compound in one spot, you'd really see the hump in the wall. I'm going to try to avoid that. So I am just feathering all this out all the way up top. And you can see how it's starting to smooth out here pretty nice. I'm going to go back over the center here so we can get that filled. There we go. Now I'm just going to go over it very smoothly. There we go. Now you can see what's starting to happen here. We'll do the same all the way on the end here. I'm working at an odd angle because I'm underneath my shelving on the back wall. So this may not be the smoothest, but again, we're going to get the job done here quite nicely. There we go. We're just trying to smooth it out best we can here. So that's not half bad. So I'm going to leave it like that and call that part of it complete. So this wall, this hole that was here is essentially patched. And you can see that we've done a pretty good job smoothing this out. A little bit of seam here, but not a big deal. This joint compound is going to shrink. And then we might have to put some more on, but I'm going to let it shrink overnight. It'll dry, and then we will sand it down and see how it looks, and then we just may paint over it. So that's where we stand for now. Stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see you then. You can see here that the patch worked out really well, and if I hit on it here, it has hardened up, and now we just have to sand this down and then paint over it if we wish to. There's probably not a whole lot to paint here. I might even just leave it like it is. After all, it is a garage, but it should work just fine. The edges are smoothing out quite well, and it'll be finished here in a little bit. So after we're done here, we're gonna clean all this up, put everything back in the freezer, and then we'll close this one out. So stay tuned. We've got the freezer back in place here up against the storage area, and then you can see here the patch has worked quite well to fill that hole up, and I was able to sand it down, smooth it all down. I could actually go back in and paint it, but ironically enough, the color of the sanded drywall joint compound is the same color or very close to the actual paint around it. This is just dirt and grime over here. The previous owners had ATVs and a lot of toys, and I think that's just some of the grime from that. We just never cleaned that off because it's a garage, right? So, but this turned out really well. I'm gonna knock on this again like I did previously here. You can tell it's solid wherever you hit it. And that's how you patch a hole with existing drywall that you might have laying around. And just one more commentary on this. You know, they sell those patch kits that you can buy at the store to fill up the holes and repair holes in your wall. And I think at the time of this video, those probably run $6, $8, $10. And my recommendation is you don't need to purchase those and take the extra trip to the store. Like I said before, if you have an extra piece of drywall laying around, it's always good to keep extra drywall from projects just for this type of occasion. I've got drywall sitting way over there on the back side of that black storage shelving unit that has been here since we bought the house a couple of years ago. And they're just pieces that, in case you get holes, I can just chop them up and patch the walls with that. So always good to keep that, save a little bit of money, and it turns out just as good as you would if you were to purchase one of those patch kits. So with that, that'll bring us to the end of patching a hole in the wall. With that, we're going to close this out and move on to the next project. Until then, peace out.